It's allowed to be hard. It is hard. That's okay. But you're doing this for a reason. You want this thing out of it, and we're getting that right now. So let's keep going. We've got this. You got this. You trained. You're ready. It's scary. It's hard, but we've got this, and we've got a reason for doing it.
I'm really excited to introduce my guests, Chris and Alyssa, and Chris's company, TSX Challenge. But before I do, I'll share with you an anecdote to highlight why I think TSX Challenge is bold, exciting, and frankly, a necessary endeavor. So back in 2006, I began researching the viability of bringing my company Fit for Trips to market. Okay, the service was simple. I would provide fitness training programs for people who had booked amazing adventures. And as far as I could tell online, there was one company that really provided this service, and it did a good job. But overall, the information online was mostly inferior and ineffective. I do recall that Backpacker Magazine did an okay job, but the tour operators, not so much. Okay, they would tell you to do the Stairmaster 3 times per week, or just go swimming, or cycling a few times per week, or wear a pack and go hiking a few times, But many adventurers that wanted to book the hikes were doing so because there was no hiking they could do where they lived, okay? So in my process of researching online, I learned of an organization called the Adventure Travel Trade Association. And they were having their first World Summit that would bring every outbound tour operator in the world together along with every inbound tour operator. Okay, and one of the primary goals of the Adventure Travel Trade Summit was to provide networking so that outbound tour operators could partner with inbound tour operators, okay? And so what that means for the listeners is this, okay? In the adventure travel industry, especially regarding international trips departing from the U.S., the outbound tour operator, let's call them Company A in the U.S., that wants to send their clients to a destination in Patagonia, for example, or Africa, they'll team up with Company B, which is the inbound tour operator that operates in, let's say, Africa, for example, okay? And then they negotiate a deal to work together. And then now Company B wears the logo of Company A, and now Company A can market their trips to new destinations, let's say to Africa, Costa Rica, France, Iceland, etc. So Company B does not have the marketing resources, so it's a win-win for the tour operators and especially the adventure traveler. So anyway, I made a list of all the tour operator founders that would be there. Okay, then I was going to pitch my idea about providing trip-specific training programs as a value-added service whereby the tour operator could focus on booking trips and I would provide fitness solutions to their travelers. Okay, I needed to understand if they liked the idea. Okay, and based on their reaction and feedback would determine whether to begin building out fitfortrips.com and the business model. But there was one individual I really wanted to talk to. And he owned one of the most premier adventure travel companies in the world. So I tracked him down and I pitched my idea. And to my surprise, he was underwhelmed by my venture. And he wished me luck. And he told me that, the hard, challenging itineraries were out and quote unquote soft itineraries were in. We're just going to make the itineraries easier, he said. Okay. And so my naive self could not believe it. I was like, well, if the itinerary could be so amazing, but it would require some training, then it must be worth it. I did not think there was anything fun about making an itinerary easier. The itinerary is the itinerary. The client gets to see the best of the best. If they need to train for it, then just provide the training. Now, I'd felt in my own experience that a challenging outdoor venture was the most rewarding. And I still believe it today. But in all fairness to this individual, his company is still thriving today. In fact, it's been acquired by another tour operator. Okay, and by the way, that summit was back in 2006, by the way. Okay. Anyway, and I'm not here to say that guy was wrong. Okay, there are many travelers that want easy trips to enjoy food, culture, and animal watching, etc. But I know there are plenty of people that prefer a challenging hiking adventure. And not only that, the research is conclusive that deep in our DNA, we need these challenging adventures. So, folks, it's your lucky day. I have found a company that is antithetical to easy. They provide challenging itineraries, not like any other I've seen before, and they lean into the challenge. They don't hide the challenge. It's like right in your face. But the challenge, it's not gratuitous. Okay, it is intentional, and there is good reason for it. And I'm really excited to introduce these two folks to you today. But first, I want to bring in Chris, owner of TSX Challenge. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Marcus. Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Sure. So before I introduce Alyssa, Chris, tell us why you started this bold adventure you call TSX Challenge.
Well, we started TSX Challenge back in 2011 as really a product of something I did as a kid. So when I was like 14 years old, I had a fifth grade teacher who introduced me to backpacking the Sierra. I had a guy by the name of Mike Murphy, and he had been taking students and community members on this inspirational hike across the Sierra to Mount Whitney every year since 1983. In fact, he continued to do up until just the last couple of years. And I was one of those kids that had a huge impact on me, changed my world perspective in terms of like the challenge, realizing there's something greater than yourself out there, and kind of the majesty of the Sierra. And that stuck with me as I kind of grew up. And as I was, growing up with a family and getting a job, I decided I wanted to have more time outdoors. And so I also wanted to have a positive impact on other people. And this trail in particular, this week-long hike across the Sierra to Mount Whitney, pretty much positively impacts just about everyone it touches. So Mike and I got our heads together back in 2010, 2011, and thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could take this unique experience that we have from the Clovis, Fresno area, where I grew up in Central California, and open it up to touch more people. And so that's how the TSX Challenge was started. So TSX Challenge stands for originally Trans-Sierra Extreme Challenge. And when we first started this trip, this company or this group, our goal was really just do one route, that week-long hike across the Sierra to Mount Whitney, and just do it really well. Take all different ages, all different experience levels, and give them the opportunity to accomplish something that would be greater than they could do on their own. From there, it's kind of grown, kind of organically, word of mouth. We expanded the Grand Canyon to other locations, and it's really gratifying to be here sharing this with you today. So thank you for having us, Marcus.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think your mission is so important these days. I mean, challenging yourself in the wilderness and remote nature has been shown to cure emotional and physical ailments. So I wanted to have kind of two voices. I wanted male, female, company owner / guide and guide. But I noticed on the site that you don't use the word guide. And I was just thinking, okay, you use the word team leader. And I get why, having read everything about your company. So I want to bring Alyssa into the conversation. Okay, she's a team leader. So Alyssa, please pronounce your last name.
It's Alyssa Whoaa.
Whoa, okay. Whoaa. I love it. So Alyssa in 2019 through hiked the Pacific Crest Trail and fell in love with backpacking. She spent a lot of time in Antarctica working for a research station at the South Pole. And when not in Antarctica, she spends time doing as many fun and interesting outdoor activities as possible all around the globe. So she is part of the TSX team to help bring people together to challenge themselves and experience some of the most pristine and beautiful backcountry areas the planet has to offer. So, Alyssa, there are a lot of tour operators to guide for. What do you love about TSX Challenge?
It's such a hard question to answer because everything. It's such an incredible company to work for. I love working with Chris. I love the mission that we have. Our tagline is inspiration for a lifetime, and there isn't a single adventure that we lead that doesn't offer just that. So it's a really incredible team to be a part of and to help others experience the outdoors in a way that is challenging. There's a challenge for everyone, whether it's internal or external, emotional or physical. And I love being there to support people and moving through those things, overcoming and, feeling incredible about an accomplishment that they've completed.
Well, I'm sure that Chris is flattered to have you since there's so many other places to be.
She understates her experience. I don't know if you knew, Marcus, but her first ever overnight backpacking trip was the PCT.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Wow, you're bold. She is.
Thank you.
She is the perfect person for this. No kidding.
Yeah.
So and we'll get to this, and Alyssa, you'll be able to talk about kind of some of the things you've seen revealed in the clients that you take out, into the wilderness. But yeah, I think that's really exciting. Thanks for sharing that, Chris, because now it puts it a little more into perspective. You really get it, Alyssa, completely. And maybe at the time you didn't know why you were doing what you were doing, but having done it, you probably have learned so much and are excited for the people going on these trips because they're going to experience some similar evolutions in their thinking, maybe emotionally. And anyway, well, that's really cool. So as I said earlier, Chris leans in and does not hide the challenges that the clients will encounter. Okay. And the thing is, they know this before they book one of the trips. And I think that's bold because many tour operators would fear that less people would book trips if they really knew the challenges that they would face. But Chris makes it clear that they can counter a combination of these things. So these are some of the things. So like challenging terrain, rain, hiking over snow, hiking in snow, exposure to ledges and high heights, time away from family, days without phone or connection, long days, full packs, little sleep, uphill, downhill, Taliesin Scream, marshy trails, stream crossings, boulders, early starts. So in your infinite wisdom, why did you think telling this to the people up front that they would actually book your trips? I mean, it's exciting. I know you're not taking that the wrong way. I mean, this is what you do. So what was it?
We did name it TSX Challenge because everything we do is a challenge. There's challenges that we have on the trail. There's challenges we have in life. And so I think a lot of the things we do, we help kind of push people a little bit outside their comfort zone. And explaining to people up front is really important to just kind of communicate the expectation. So we kind of wear it in our name, right? TSX Challenge is who we are. It's what we do. And we help people kind of overcome really difficult challenges on the trail. So hopefully when they go back home, no matter what comes at them at school, work, life, family, etc., they have kind of the resources and the know-how to kind of like overcome those challenges in life as well. So it's not just about being on the trail. It's kind of like the bigger picture of like, we can do amazing, incredible things and, kind of getting something more out of ourselves than we might have otherwise expected.
Yeah. And so I pulled some phrases. I think it was from your site. Might have been from one of your videos. And you just made that point that it's not just about being on the trails. So you mentioned things like the hikers, your clients, the participants will sometimes be team members. Okay, maybe they'll be team leaders. Sometimes they'll have to dig deep and they'll have to help someone, or maybe they'll have to even, get help, ask for help. The challenges bring people together. You mentioned that. And bringing what you learn on the trip with you to work or family. Chris, just expound on that a little more. And then Alyssa, I'll have you share your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Everything we do is definitely a team experience. And we model this as, we call it a team leader. It's also a guide. They have a lot of love, care, and experience in the areas that they're taking people out into. But it is a team effort. These are long, difficult trips with a lot of the challenges you just mentioned. Even the most easy of trips might be impacted by weather. When you're out there for 3 or 4 nights, it could be 95 degrees, which it was on Alyssa's last trip. And then when you come out, there's snow on top of the rim. And it all happens in the same 5 or 6 day trip. So all of these elements are out there. You have uncertain weather conditions, uncertain, trail conditions. A group of people who come as strangers, but oftentimes are forced through some pretty challenging moments. And I think it's in those challenging moments where real bonds are formed, whether with friends or family or like these teams that we have. And we do call it a team because I think no matter how prepared or how much training you do, and then Marcus, I know your training regimen is amazing, like how you organize some things and get people prepared physically. There's also kind of that emotional and mental component where you might be out there for 6 or 7 days, and even then, any one of those challenges might not be that difficult for you on any given day. But when you string them all together, it can be a mentally challenging, emotionally challenging, physically demanding. And I can pretty much guarantee, no matter how much preparation you put in, you're going to have a moment where you're going to have to dig deep and will yourself forward. And that's when the team leaders like Alyssa or the guides that we have out there are there to step in and help. That's when the other members of the team are there to help as well. everyone will have that moment at some point or the other. It might not be every trip, but at some point, you're going to have a moment where you got to kind of weigh yourself forward. And that's kind of the perspective that we take.
Okay. Alyssa, curious, what do you, it's becoming clear what your travelers and clients will get out of the trips. But Alyssa, what do you get out of leading these trips?
So much. I think one of the biggest things is just, the experience of witnessing growth in others, which is so inspiring, and to see the trails that we lead again and again through new, fresh eyes and see the wonder. So it never feels old. And to be able to help other people see all that beauty and wonder and overcome those challenges is also personally empowering, to be able to help facilitate that experience for them and help them find their strength and their hardest moments and show up for each other and for themselves is just something that feels really, really incredible to be a part of.
Okay. What do people get out of the trips? Go for it.
It's a great sense of accomplishment, hopefully. That's probably the biggest thing in the end. Yeah, I think there are amazing places that you can see all over the world. There's incredible guide groups, exampled by this trade organization that you went to back in 2006, where you can see amazing places all over the world. But I think the thing that you can take away from our experiences, which might be a little bit different, is that great sense of accomplishment, kind of that new camaraderie and sense of community and family and belonging.
Okay. Alyssa, any comments on that you've noticed? Any transformations in people and what they get out of it?
I would absolutely echo everything Chris has said. And I would also, really emphasize the self-confidence. People go into this and everyone faces a challenge, whether it's within themselves or with the trail itself. And, everyone just they get through something really difficult on every single trail, no matter what it is, if it's the heat or dehydration or, a really tricky downhill or a fear of heights or something like that. And I try to remind everyone when they come out, reflect on that and hold that close, because there was a moment during this where you most likely were I don't know if I can do this, and you did. So the next time you doubt yourself, don't.
Okay, that's great. So I think that's a good segue into something I saw on the site. It was about thorns and roses around the campfire. Can you explain what that is, Chris? And then Alyssa, you can jump in and comment.
Sure. So Thorns and Roses is a real simple way to kind of recap a day. And after every hike, we go around and we allow everyone to have an opportunity to share a rose, which is something positive about the day, something they enjoyed, and a thorn, which maybe is something that didn't work out or maybe wasn't that great about the day. And this is, in terms of when you have group dynamics, there could be a lot of different people with different backgrounds, different confidence levels to speak up in a group. But this is now everyone's individual moment to share their own ideas and to recount on the highlights of the day. And it's also our opportunity for us to learn on what's not working. So we use this as a two-way feedback system every day, where we're capturing information about, hey, this didn't work. How can we help this individual for day 2, day 3, day 4? And also, this is what's working. How can we reinforce the positives throughout the course of the trip so that you come away with something great? And I think it's a great way just to also bring people together, because these are hard trips and everyone has a moment where they can speak their mind and be heard. And it's important both to have the opportunity to speak and to also be able to listen and reflect on what others are experiencing, so that you and the group around you can kind of react and respond appropriately on day 2, day 3, day 4 to work together and kind of see that through to success.
Right. Alyssa, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I love thorns and roses. When I'm on my own trips, I do it with myself. I'll write it in my journal every day, a thorn and a rose from the day, because I think it's a really good way to remember that even if you're having a great day, there might be something that wasn't perfect, and that's okay. And even if you're having a tough day, there was still going to be a highlight. There's still going to be something that was, the best part of your day. And when I'm leading trips, I really like to add in a bud, something that hasn't bloomed yet, something that we're looking forward to, just to kind of keep that optimism and positivity and hope and excitement about what's still yet to come, knowing that the adventure isn't over. And I think it's just a really good way to practice mindfulness too, being present and being where you're at, actually really being there, not focusing on work or what you're going back to, but just being this is where I am and this is what's going on for me right now.
I think that's great. I've been around a lot of campfires and I wish you would have brought that up. I love that idea. That's fantastic. Now, my guess is there are also some people, because it seems like a vulnerable time, I guess, with some people who are a little more introverted. My guess is, you just comment on this. My guess is there are some people, they won't share as much at the beginning, and then by the middle or the end of the trip, they're they're wide open and you can tell that, that they're comfortable sharing, their thoughts. You guys want to comment on that? Alyssa, any thoughts on that?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think, a lot of people come into the trip being like, oh, I have to like prove that I'm super strong and tough and, I can't like let anything get to me. And the dynamics that develop in these little families that we have really breed a lot of vulnerability and openness. Sometimes there are tears, sometimes there's anger. A lot of the time there's joy, but there are the difficult things that come along with that too. But the community, the sense of community that's built on the trail through getting through all the difficult experiences really opens up the opportunity to just be like, yeah, like this thing was really hard for me and maybe I didn't expect it to be. And a lot of support from everyone being like, yeah, maybe that was hard for me too. And I think that helps people feel a little bit more comfortable, which is really, really cool to see, really cool to watch evolve.
And I would say, Marcus, everyone takes it from their perspective. Some people come in and they're able to share right off from day one. Some people, it does take a while to kind of get used to things and share their thoughts. And some people are like, I'm just going to this is great. I had a great coffee this morning. It was awesome. The views are amazing. I'm all good. And that's okay as well. So this is for everyone to find their own comfort level and it's not forced or anything like that. We are able to keep it positive, upbeat, and just provide an opportunity for stuff like this to take place and develop.
And I think that's great. People will kind of do it on their own comfort level and on their own whims. So there's an article on the website by a previous client named Kenneth Can. Is that Can? Is that how you pronounce it, or Con?
Yeah, Kenneth Can. I love it. That's one of my favorite articles.
Oh, it's great. So it's titled, "There Were Tears Getting Wise on Top of Mount Whitney." And he details his journey on the TSX Trans-Sierra Extreme Challenge with his wife, Stephanie. And he writes this about summit day atop Mount Whitney. This is day number 6. We had lunch, took pictures, and signed the guest book at the summit. As we prepared to depart, Stephanie asked, "Will you come up here again?" Standing there on top of Mount Whitney, I had met the Trans-Sierra Extreme Challenge, but I arrived at the summit with a new understanding, with wisdom. There would be no next Whitney climb. There would be no backpacking trip across the John Muir Trail, 211 miles from Mount Whitney to Yosemite. Stephanie would have to do it without me. "No," I replied, "I won't be back." Tears began dropping down my cheeks, and I looked out a final time, and then I turned down the trail. Yeah, I love it.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story of physical and emotional perseverance, and it was raw and real. And although Kenneth might not be back for another adventure like Mount Whitney, it seems obvious to me that he would do it all over again because of what he learned in the process, and he would recommend it to anyone he cared about and loved. There's nothing contrived that I think could have replaced this with Kenneth. And this is, it seems like what challenges are all about for some people. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, Ken was he wrote that back in he was the second year we were operating back in 2012, maybe 2013, but he contacted us. we found this mutual, I was just trying to, he was trying to sell himself and like, hey, we can do it. We're qualified. He was, him and his wife were a little on the old. He was an older gentleman coming on. I think he was in his late 60s, if I recall correctly. At the time, he was backpacking with us. And at the same time, I was trying to get some, we can take you across. We'll make it happen. And so it was kind of this great meeting. And, it is an opportunity. It's a learning experience for a lot of people. It's, no matter your age or background, shape, or size, I think there's an opportunity for self-discovery. And that's why I really enjoy about these trips. I think that happens at multiple levels for different backgrounds, skill sets. There's the opportunity to learn something about yourself that you might not have known otherwise. And is capturing, that closing sentence or the closing phrase is awesome. You learned something, and then you came back. And then oftentimes, though, 2 or 3 weeks later, even if you say you can't do it, you get the bug like, oh yeah, maybe I'll do it again.
Yeah.
All the bad memories seem to fade, and only the good ones remain, as with all the great things in life. And so he actually did come back, and he came back and did our Hell for Sure trip. the next year, a year or two, a couple years later.
Oh, good. Okay.
A little bit less intense of a trip, a little bit more of a
Right.
moderately paced experience. But he did fantastic. It was great to have him back.
A real testament to what you do, Chris, for sure. Especially since he came back. He learned something, and what he definitely learned was as he stepped back, and I can relate completely, that you kind of, you learn what your potential is. And yeah, you forget how challenging it was and remember the good things about it. And then actually can't wait to do something similar in the future. So I'm actually not surprised that he came back. I can relate to that. So I thought at this point, let's kind of play a quick game here, okay?
Sure.
So I'm going to read off an itinerary. These are the itineraries that you guys offer. I'll read off the itinerary, and you tell me kind of the first things that come to mind about it, okay? So one thing I should mention is you have this Grand Canyon challenge trips, and I believe you have 5 of those. And then it looks like you have 5 other itineraries. So it looks like 5 in California and 5 in Arizona, in the Grand Canyon area. Is that correct?
Roughly speaking, correct.
Okay. So here we go. Let's start with the first one. So the Trans-Sierra Mount Whitney. Go, Chris.
That's an epic trek across the Sierra to Mount Whitney. Great for all ages, all experience levels. The more experience you have, the more training you can do with the pack, the more you will enjoy it. But I would say that's our foundational, flagship route. No one quite does it the way we do.
Okay. Alyssa?
There are spiritual places along that route. It is full of magic, full of wonder. It's super stunning. Water slides, alpine lakes, lots of really, really beautiful, amazing, special moments and places along that trail. And just like the calm quiet you get as you're moving through the beginning is amazing before you get into more traversed territory closer to Mount Whitney. So it's nice to have a little bit of both, where it's quiet and you're getting comfortable with it, and then you start to run into more people.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Hell for sure. Let's go Alyssa first. Well, let me first clarify. Alyssa, you comment on the ones that you've been on, because I know you've been on. The only thing I know about you from when we initially talked is that you had guided the Trans-Sierra Mount Whitney. So I'll go with Chris on all of them first, and if you want to comment, then you can jump in, okay? So Chris, let's go with Hell for Sure.
So the Hell for Sure Challenge is a 596-day route that goes through some of the most remote, least traveled parts of the Sierra. It's south of Yosemite, north of Kings Canyon. We pass more than a dozen high Sierra lakes, plenty of time to swim and fish. We bag a couple 12,000-foot peaks with incredible views of the Sierra Crest and the Guard Divide. Not many people get out to this area. It's a route that we created that includes about 6 or 8 miles of off-trail travel as well. So it's a route we just kind of invented to share an area we love with those who are kind of in the TSX community.
Cool. And if you've invented the route, make sure you mention that. I think that's really cool.
We created this one.
Okay, if you scouted it, definitely. Lost Coast.
Lost Coast is our newest trip. I actually just came off there yesterday. I was out there on the Lost Coast for the last 3 or 4 nights. And that's like a stretch, 25, 26-mile stretch coastline in Northern California. We'll be speaking about 4 hours north of San Francisco Bay Area. That takes you through some pristine terrain right along the shoreline between towering 4,000-foot peaks and the California coast. And through that, you walk along the beach, you walk along the bluffs. There's a couple areas which are impassable zones during high tides. So you have to kind of time the tides. But it's a great experience. I would say one of the best places if you're new to backpacking to start is the Lost Coast.
Okay.
For our level of experiences. For most people, it's a challenging trip, but for the kind of range of experiences we offer, it's a great place to start.
Okay. All right. Tehipite Valley.
Oh, now you're letting people in the big secret. So Tehipite Valley is one of the best kept secrets in the Sierra. Not many people know it exists. It's incredibly difficult to get to. It's kind of like Yosemite Valley, but with no people. And so if you think about, you have Half Dome in Yosemite Valley, here you have Tehipite Dome. It's a full dome. In fact, Tehipite Dome is the largest dome in the entire Sierra, with a 3,500-foot sheer rise from valley floor to the summit. And we developed a trip and designed a trip that goes a little bit off trail, both to the dome, or the ledges of the dome, and to the valley floor. It's really an incredible trip, challenging, mainly because the trails are really difficult to access, and also they are not maintained. And so it's a lot of blow down, climbing over trees, going through some scracky areas, but it's a lot of fun and incredibly rewarding once you reach the valley floor.
Okay. All right. Mount Goddard.
You just run through these. So Mount Goddard is, I love all of these. I'm super excited just to share. So thank you, Marcus. So Mount Goddard is this big 13,500 foot burly mountain, smack dab in the middle of Kings Canyon National Park. And not many people know it exists. There's no route or trail to the summit. In fact, the route we do, we kind of develop on our own as well. And we go about 10 miles of off trail travel into Goddard Canyon, up to the summit, and then over something we call the Wall, which is on the LeConte Divide, and make a big loop of it, about 50 miles in total. This is probably one of the most challenging routes that we have. It's going to stretch the imagination of even the most experienced backpackers. So if you like to push yourselves outside your comfort zone, this is definitely the one to check out if you're an experienced backpacker.
Okay. All right, let's head over to the Grand Canyon Challenge itineraries, okay? Let's start with Thunder River.
I'll let Alyssa take this one. She just came off this yesterday.
All right, go for it.
Thunder River is amazing. You drop in from the North Rim, you hike down to the Esplanade, you continue to Thunder River, which is, as they say, the Grand Canyon's shortest river. It's stunning, just like water pouring out of a couple cracks in the wall. Super nice. It's the only place on the whole trail where I've actually felt a little bit chilly, getting to like be in the shade and in the water. Hike down to Pete's Creek, all the way to the Colorado, hike along some like really beautiful cliffs over to Deer Creek, visit the falls. It's just like, it's so stunning the whole way. Everything is a treat. Every day I think gets better and better. And then, after a little layover day and some time to play in the water, in the Colorado, you make your way back up to the Esplanade and out. It's definitely challenging. I've heard a few of our veteran clients say it's one of the more challenging hikes they've done with us. And unexpectedly so. They weren't expecting it to be as hard as it is. And it's definitely slow miles. You have to earn every one of them, but they are all so very worth it.
Okay, cool. Is there any comments, Chris, or is that pretty good?
Thunder River, as you go through our Grand Canyon lineup, we started with just one route, which was the Grand Canyon Challenge. And that was like a 3-night, 4-day loop that is a little bit off the quarter trails, a hermit kind of Bright Angel loop that we did about 25, 30 miles. We did that in 2014. And when we started the Grand Canyon, actually was introduced to the Grand Canyon by a buddy of mine who lives in Flagstaff. And he's like, Casado, you do all this backpacking this year. You got to check out the Grand Canyon. And so we put together this loop, and this was the second trip that we began offering in the Grand Canyon back in 2014. And our goal was really just to do one route and do it really well. But as I got to know the Grand Canyon, I became just like, there's so much diversity out there, so many places to explore. I had some great people who kind of introduced me to the Grand Canyon in different areas. People were guiding with us. And so we began to add different trips. And currently we've been adding one trip a year, and we're going to add another trip this year as well. And my goal is to have an opportunity to backpack the entire Grand Canyon trail system from where commercial groups are allowed to guide. So there's basically about 7 or 8 different loops or routes you can do. And so we've been adding them one by one. So the Grand Canyon, you could roll through here, but that's kind of how we're approaching this, is kind of our trying to cover end to end of the Grand Canyon.
That's great. That's really exciting. I'm going to get to a question in a moment. Kind of tie this and relate it to just a typical rim-to-rim challenge.
Sure.
Now, there is that Grand Canyon Challenge, that is one of your itineraries.
Correct.
All right, so just comment on that. You may have already said
it's a 3-night, 4-day loop that takes you down to the Colorado River. So there's a night to sleep on the beaches of the Colorado. You have a night sleeping in kind of a side or slot-like canyon somewhere off below the rim. And then usually one night on the Tonto or somewhere near or the Red Wall or above the Red Wall, perhaps. So somewhere down below, either 2/3 or a third of the way down into the canyon. So 3 different nights with varied camp locations, 25 to 30 mile loop. And it's a great spot, a great trip to begin your exploration of the Grand Canyon.
Okay. Let's jump to the Escalante route.
Escalante route is a little spicy. And it's for people who like to kind of push the edges a little bit. So if you right now we do as a 3-day, 3-night, 4-day trip. So similar to the Grand Canyon Challenge, but here it's more rugged terrain. more time by the Colorado River, which is incredible. In fact, one of my favorite campsites in the entire Grand Canyon is on Escalante Beach, this beautiful kind of half moon beach right smack in the middle of the Escalante route. And we go through like a beautiful, narrow canyon called 75 Mile Creek Canyon. You get to see a lot of diversity of the Grand Canyon, but it's also going to push you in a few different ways. It's rugged. There's a little bit of a Papago wall, which is a 30 to 35 foot kind of scramble up the side of the wall with the pack. And then the Papago slide, which is a big rock slide where you have to kind of navigate your way down with your pack slowly with the team. And those can kind of be elevated times of like excitement. But I'd say it's fully featured and a great opportunity for people who, again, like a little more spicy.
Okay. We got 3 more to hit in the Grand Canyon area. Let's go with Jump Up Canyon.
Jump Up Canyon is in the far northwest corner of the Grand Canyon. And actually, Jump Up Canyon itself is more like Kanab Creek Wilderness proper, but we use the route that goes, it's a down and back that goes through some beautiful, least traveled, more remote parts of the Grand Canyon, towering, narrow slot canyons. And then eventually you end up in Kanab Creek, which is kind of this big, beautiful drainage to the Grand Canyon. We go out and back, and we just do this in the spring and fall where it's kind of the weather's great. Jump Up Canyon, actually, the way we enter the canyon is probably one of the easiest routes into the canyon. It's a very narrow, very smooth walk down a wash. So it's a great spot for people who are maybe don't want the heights of the Grand Canyon or don't want to have the intense downhill sections. This is a very gentle grade into the Grand Canyon.
Okay. How about let's go to the confluence and then we'll hit Rim to Rim Extreme Challenge last. So let's go with the confluence.
So the confluence, I would say, is an epic journey through the Grand Canyon. We do over 6 nights, 7 days, about 55 to 60 miles, roughly speaking. And we go out to the Little Colorado meets the main Colorado. It's been called the Beamer Trail. We use the Tanner Trail. It also goes on the Escalante route. And then we exit via something called the Grand View Trail. And so we kind of tied together 4 different Grand Canyon trails or trail systems into one epic Grand Canyon experience. And I would say this experience, it's difficult to kind of communicate how majestic it is. It would rival like our Trans-Sierra Extreme Challenge experience in terms of like the range of diversity that you cover out there.
Okay. All right. So the reason why I want to do Rim to Rim Extreme Challenge last is because I want to juxtapose it to what people just know as the Rim to Rim. Okay. So a lot of people have Rim to Rim on their bucket list. They've heard of going from North Kaibab to South Kaibab, or Bright Angel, or South Kaibab to North Kaibab, and hikers deliberate whether to go north, south, or vice versa. Whether to do it one day or stay at the famous Phantom Ranch or campsites. But you provide this Rim to Rim Extreme Challenge that people probably haven't heard of. So kind of juxtapose. They seem very different. It's almost, to me, it's not like one replaces the other. It seems like there's a reason why you do a typical Rim to Rim. So why don't you talk about yours, what you're offering, the Rim to Rim Extreme Challenge, and then maybe tell us what you know about Rim to Rim and, some differences. I'm pretty sure there's some major differences. But anyway, I'll let you run with that.
Yeah, so first of all, I have a lot of respect for people who have done the Rim to Rim trips. Like, that's an incredible accomplishment, incredible feat. Like getting yourself down to the Grand Canyon, if you've hiked the Bright Angel or the South Kaibab Trail, or if you've gone north to south, south to north, amazing. Like that is an incredible accomplishment. And I know some people do it in 1 day, some people do it in 2 days, some people do it in 3 days. No matter how you do it, I think you're a champ. Like that's an amazing feat. My own personal preference is, it's a very high traffic area as well. There's great resources along the way. The trails are well maintained by the Park Service, relatively speaking. There's reliable access to water on those routes as well. And so those are great places for, those trails carry the bulk of traffic in the Grand Canyon. There's another opportunity to go rim to rim, which is a little bit more remote and farther removed. And in fact, it's difficult to access because the roads are often closed for much of the year. And in fact, you have to go through miles and miles of backcountry travel, 4-wheel drive type roads to get to the trailheads, both the North Bass and the South Bass Trail. which is what we use to do the rim to rim trip on this rim to rim extreme challenge. And while the trails are remote and rugged, similar to some of these other routes we've talked about, one thing that sets us a little bit unique is that in order to cross the Colorado River, we will have to take a pack raft across. And so there's no bridge. We'll be floating across the Colorado River on this rim to rim challenge. And that's what makes it fun and unique. It's just like the more remoteness, less people, less crowds, opportunities to push yourselves on some of the more remote trails, and then have a unique experience of floating across the Colorado.
Okay, that's pretty exciting. Let's go right back to the Trans-Sierra Mount Whitney itinerary real quick. You have a particular route that you take, okay? As we discussed before, there are several trails that lead to Mount Whitney, and they all share two kind of trails to the summit. But what is it about the route that you pick? Why did you choose it for your clients to experience it?
So you're right, Marcus, there's different routes to Mount Whitney. When most people approach Mount Whitney, they think of the main Whitney Trail, which is from Whitney Portal. And that's about 11 miles straight up, 11 miles straight down with 6,100 feet of elevation gain. Again, this is similar to the rim to rim trails. This is an incredible accomplishment by itself. We approach it from the west, which means we have to hike 55, 60 plus miles just to make it to the summit, then hike out from there. And there's a few different ways people approach it. Some people can approach it from the kind of the southern part of the Sierra at the Mineral King. Some people approach it on something called the High Sierra Trail, which is the most popular route and kind of the named route across the Sierra. We approach it on something a little bit more remote from the north and going over a kind of a more remote pass or something called Colby Pass, dropping into the Kern. And so there's less people, less traffic. It just also happens to be the route that I was introduced to as a kid. So it was the route I grew up hiking when I was younger. I did with my brothers, with my family and friends. And so it's great to share that similar experience with others. I would say one of the most more remote, least traveled regions of the Sierra, you're going to kind of cross in this route. One also unique feature, which Alyssa can talk to you more, is you do have to cross the Kern River. And on these other routes from the south, both the High Sierra Trail and the Mineral Route, there is a bridge that takes you across the Kern River. On our route, there is no bridge. And in those highest snow years, like we had this past year, where it was the monster record year, that can present some pretty unique challenges. And Alyssa was on a team that last year kind of pioneered a route across that river and had some pretty incredible accomplishments and experiences.
Yeah, Alyssa, go for it. I'll have you can speak to that, and you can also say anything about, why you love Mount Whitney and guiding people to the summit.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. So, okay, the Kern River crossing is a bit of a wild one when the water is flowing, but once again, it's like an opportunity for teamwork, which is something we really emphasize because we are a team. We're a little family. We stick together. We help each other out. Everybody contributes somehow to the group, right? Like we're all participating. We're all helping each other. And doing something like that is one of those really good ways where it's like, okay, whole team has to come together. We're all going to help ferry packs. We're going to help shuttle people. We're going to make sure that we all get across. We're relying on each other. We're trusting each other. And that like strengthens that team dynamic so much more. The whole route in general, I really like the way that we go across the Sierra. I think we get to see some really incredible sights and, we get some of that quiet solitude before we get to Crabtree, where often there are a lot of people. We're not running into a bunch of people on the trail. We have some of that time to like think and reflect and really figure out what we want out of the experience and how we want to carry that into our lives afterwards. And as far as like the enjoyment of helping people get to the top, it's a really hard thing. And I think, going at something like that without support, without like a trip leader or a guide, it's really easy to be like, I don't know if I can do this. It's really easy to second guess yourself. And when you have someone there that's like, no, like I see that you can do it. We've got this. Or on the other side, keeping you safe if, like there are some concerns or you hurt yourself or something like that. Having someone there to like help encourage you when you're like, oh man, this feels really scary. It's like, yeah, it does. But like, we're going to do it. We'll take it step by step. I'll walk with you. Like, I'll help you. You'll get there. And that feels really good. And to see people get to the top so often, there's so many happy tears, so much disbelief of like, I can't believe I just did this. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. I can't believe I'm up here. And you feel like you're standing on top of the world, like you're the tallest thing. And you see out so far, assuming the weather is great. And it's just, it feels like such tremendous accomplishment and relief on the top of like, wow, I did it. I made it. I did this. I carried myself here. And to like watch people go through that and like realize their own strength is just so heartwarming and fulfilling.
That's great. I love it.
I agree with everything Alyssa said. It's a incredible accomplishment. From my perspective, in addition, like Whitney is kind of the hook. Like it's what draws people into the trip. And a lot of people know Mount Whitney. But even if you don't summit, and it is optional to summit on Mount Whitney Day, it's an up and back day hike. It's an incredible accomplishment. Like, hiking like a week across the Sierra and pushing yourselves in ways that you might have not otherwise thought possible. I think like the real beauty of it is just that the journey. And Mount Whitney is a great, accomplishment in the end. But even those who may not reach the summit on occasion, there's so much more. Even for those who reach the summit, they realize the process, the experiences is really what this trip is all about.
I think Whitney is like
Love
the
it.
cherry on top, but the ice cream sundae underneath is so good. It's such good quality.
That's kind of it. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good analogy. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about fitness. Of course, that's my shtick. My listeners and my clients have heard about my Fit for Trips Big Five philosophy and how they're important for any hiking training program. So I'm going to quickly list them, and we can use those concepts to flush out a few training ideas that you guys recommend for your clients. Okay, so basically, I'm not going to describe them in detail, but here they are. So the Fit for Trips Big Five. Okay, so number 1, walk inclines. Number 2, walk stairs. Number 3, walk lunges. 4, walk far. And 5, HIIT training, high intensity interval training. So really briefly, walk inclines. You got to lengthen and strengthen your Achilles, calf, plantar fascia. You got to be acclimated to ascending. Okay, then walk stairs. Stairs have a very aggressive climb. And the only reason it's really possible, otherwise it would be a very difficult scrambling hike. You have the flat part of the stairs, but you get an aggressive climb and you get the benefits of the descent, and you develop that proper strength to be able to tolerate going downhill safely and confidently. 3, walk lunges, just a catch-all term for leg strength in general. 4, walking far. You need your body to be able to tolerate tens of thousands of steps. You need the bones and the tendons and the joints, everything, to be able to acclimate to just being on your feet for long periods of time. And then the 5th one is HIIT training, which there are several reasons. Without going too much into detail, it can help with confidence a little more at altitude, helps with the recovery in general, and being able to hike a little bit longer without taking as many breaks. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. We don't have to get too deep into it, but maybe each of you will share just a couple tips that you recommend to it. But also, I would, before we get to that, Chris, just kind of share your wisdom with people about fitness and how it can help with the experience. And
It's huge. We try to remind people as much as possible. We have a series of emails that go out before a trip reminding, hey, how's the training going? Hey, have you started training yet? Just as a reminder. Hopefully, they read one of them before they get on the trip. But I would say the more prepared you are, the more in shape you are, the more you will enjoy it, 100%. And so doing the work in advance is really important. And I would say all the things you listed, Marcus, are right on the mark. One important aspect we always add is keep it goal oriented. Like if you're going for time, keep track of yourself. I'm going to go for an hour today. Awesome. I'm going to go for an hour and a half next week. Awesome. I'm going to go for 2 hours. Great. So now we have a goal. We're working towards a goal. If we don't make the goal, that's okay. Just, put it on the calendar the next week, reassess what worked, what didn't work, make a plan to make it better, and then come back at it again. And so whether it's your stairs or your incline, your lunges, whatever it might be, keep it goal oriented, mark a calendar, and keep yourself accountable.
okay. Alyssa, any thoughts on fitness in general?
Yeah, my personal philosophy is train harder than what the thing you're going to do is, because it'll make it easier. And then, you stay present, you do enjoy it more, you're more prepared. So if you think you're going to carry a 30-pound pack, carry 35 pounds when you're training, even if you're not going as far in the distance. Like, getting used to that weight, I think, is really, really big. A lot of people aren't used to carrying a heavy backpack. And the stairs are a really, really big one because, Stairmaster going up at the gym is pretty easy to train for the uphill part, but the downhill, I think, is what really gets people. Stepping downward is controlled falling, and falling is something that people are really afraid of. So if you don't have a lot of practice with that, with extra weight on your back and kind of like knowing how that's going to change your balance, that can feel a little bit spooky. And then that like mental aspect of it sometimes ends up being harder than the physical aspect.
100% agree with Alyssa on that. In fact, training on stairs going downhill is really important. So if you have, everyone has different resources available depending where they live. If maybe you have a high school football stadium, you could do some stairs up and down. Maybe you have an apartment complex, you can do some stairs up and down. Maybe you work in an office building. I remember where I used to work in the big skyscraper in San Francisco, and after they pulled the fire alarm, we were on the 35th floor. We walked down. Half the people the next day came back with sore legs, And so the extent that you can, find some elevation and come down stairs, flights of stairs, or take the elevator back up and come down flights of stairs again with weighted pack, as Alyssa alluded to, is even better. So that you can get confidence with those steps and really build those like downhill hiking muscles, which you can probably go into a lot more detail.
Yeah, and so I think what's important for the listeners to understand is that the conventional wisdom for people, especially I think it's young hikers, I'll often hear from. They're like, all you got to do is just go, throw on a heavy pack and go hiking. And I'm like, okay, I don't disagree with that. But so many of the people that want to go on these trips, they don't live in areas where you can do that. So Alyssa, you make a good point, and I agree. Go on a heavy pack and go walking, okay? And then stairs. So if you have those two things, then you can be very successful on any of these TSX challenge itineraries. And then if you can diversify your training more and you can add some other things like the inclines and, the leg strength work, then, that'll just, bolster your success even more. But here's the thing. I mean, sometimes you can train as hard as you can train really hard and show up really, in great shape. But sometimes the trip is still hard, and that's okay. Okay. And sometimes you just have to push through. So how do you motivate your clients when, they're having a rough day? And this can go for anybody you can speak to, or somebody who thought that they came in great shape and perhaps they did, and they're experiencing a tough day. How do you guys are pros at this. So how do you get people kind of motivated to be like, let's go. You're okay. You're ready for this. You've trained. It's safe. It's okay to push yourself. You'll be fine. We'll look after you. Just kind of talk me through that.
So one thing I do when I start a trip is when we're doing introductions and everyone's getting to know each other, I ask people why they chose this trip and what they would like to get out of it. And the reason I do that is because I want them to have that in their mind. I want that to be something that they can call on later, so that when there are hard moments or something is really tricky, I'm like, remember that reason you told me you're here? We're going to focus on that. It's allowed to be hard. It is hard. That's okay. But you're doing this for a reason. You want this thing out of it, and we're getting that right now. So let's keep going. We got this. You got this. You trained. You're ready. It's scary. It's hard, but we've got this, and we've got a reason for doing it. And then if it's like exceptionally hard, just like sometimes you got to count the steps. Everyone can take 20 more steps, 50 more steps, 100 more steps. And just like working through it little by little, just trying to be like, okay, just a little bit more. Stop, breathe. Okay, just a little bit more. Whatever we have to do really to get them there, to help them find that inner strength. But, having a mantra, having something that they can lean on, remembering the purpose, whether they're doing the hike for themselves or for someone else or something like that. Just having those motivations, I think, is really important.
Okay. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, holding on to that happy thought, which is kind of what Alyssa says. Sometimes when you when you're faced with a big challenge, you have to, when we talk about like Peter Pan sometimes, right? You have pixie dust and a happy thought, and that helps you fly. So holding on to the happy thought as you're going through those moments that are difficult is really important. On the more practical level, breaking it down, as Alyssa said, hey, someone's really going a little bit slow and they're going like 50 steps and they're taking a 2-minute break, share information. I think being a data oriented individual is really important. So, hey, you're going about 50 steps, you're taking about 2 minutes of a break. Maybe let's try for 75 and maybe we'll go for just a minute break in between. You think you do that? Yeah, it sounds good. All right, let's do it. Now we have a mental goal and we're going to try to do that. Okay, we did, no problem. Let's go for 100. We need small goals we can kind of start setting again to kind of build that confidence. Yeah, in the end, we're going to get there together. This is a team effort. No one gets left behind. We do our best to motivate people. Sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes, there's internal roadblocks in the way and it takes a few days to kind of get through that. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days just to get used to hiking with a pack. And if you've never hiked with a pack before, that's usually the biggest adjustment. Oftentimes by day 4, you're starting to hit your stride though. And the confidence is coming back. Your pack's getting lighter. Your legs are getting stronger. If you didn't do your training, you did it on the trail pretty much. And now you're kind of in the flow. And that's a great turning point for a lot of people.
Okay. I would be remiss if I did not ask you guys some questions about backpacking, especially Alyssa having done the Pacific Crest Trail and just this is what you guys do for a living. So how about 3 tips for packing the backpack? I'll take, from each of you. Go for it. Whatever. 3 tips, 2 tips, but it'd be silly for me not to ask you that question. So go for it. Either one of you.
Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. Let me think about it. 3 tips for packing a backpack. Overpacking is a novice mistake that we really try to help people avoid. And so, stick with the checklist. If you have a checklist, we provide this for our trips. Stick with that. The more, what we say is if there's one item that's not on the checklist, like one luxury item, limit it to one luxury item. That's great. If you decide you start reading 2, 3, 4 luxury items, that War and Peace novel, unless it doubles as toilet paper, probably not needed. You can leave it behind. So stick to the checklist. That's probably a really important feature. The other item is I think you probably need less clothes than most people anticipate. I think, generally speaking, if you're new to backpacking, you might think, I need to change X, Y, Z multiple times, throughout the course of a trip. In reality, you need one pair of clothes that you're wearing, and you need one set of clothes in case it gets wet. That's kind of it. And then you got something to swap out, and you have something to change into, or something, one thing you're wearing, and then one thing you sleep in, and then vice versa. So just keep it really simple, and maybe less clothes, and limit that luxury item to just kind of one item.
Okay, fair enough. Alyssa, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things I would say is know how you're packing your pack, know where you're putting your things, because it's going to make it a lot easier to find things when you're out there. You're not digging through your pack, you're not unpacking it the whole time. Pack efficiently. If you need immediate access while you're walking, it should probably be in your hip belt pocket or your pants pocket. If you need it at a break, maybe it goes in the brain. If you don't need it till camp, probably stays in the body of the backpack. Just having those things in places where you know where they are and where they're efficiently packed. That way, every time you're at a break, you don't have to empty your backpack out to get your snacks out or something. I think my second tip would be leave the deodorant at home. And that's not just it's not just deodorant. That goes for all of those extra little things. So the deodorant's not going to make you smell any better on trail. You're going to be sweating. You don't need it. It's okay. But so many people are bringing things like that, or hair care products or whatever else they need. And I think just a reminder of let's pare this down. We don't actually really need all these things out here. I think that is really, really helpful. And then for me, and I know for a lot of people, having a little bit more of the bulk of the weight of the pack more up towards our spine, up a little bit higher, not at the bottom of the pack, is really, really helpful for center of gravity and for not feeling like there's so much weight sitting directly on your hips.
Okay. So I've got something fun that I call musical trekking. So musical trekking is when you are training for a trip, okay, and you're on your training hike, or you're out walking the neighborhood, and you know the route. You don't have to pay that much attention at all, and you need some distraction because you've done the trail a million times, and you just need to do it and get in shape. And so you pick a band, one of your favorite bands, okay, or a classic band from back in the 70s or the 60s or whatever, and you start with their first album, first song, Okay. And every time you go on your training hikes, you listen. And wherever you ended, you stop. So let's say, for example, The Who. Okay. You start at the first album, first song, and you go through, and then you go to the next album and the same thing. And you get to really hear kind of the evolution of the band. So let's go with Chris. Chris, name one band that you think would be really cool for someone to go on a musical trekking journey and listen to.
I'm not sure I'm the best person for this. I appreciate
Not a music guy?
No, I love music. I have just a wide variety, and I can't think of how many compilations I'd listen to. I go like 90s hip hop R&B. Started in 1999. Started in maybe 1992, and I go all the way to 1999 and just do the whole 90s. Maybe go through a top 40 list. That might be like
so
one
any
way to
band.
go.
So no position. This is your opportunity.
Yeah,
one band that you like. Doesn't have to be your favorite.
Yeah, I don't. I grew up on country, so I gotta go with Garth Brooks probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So
amen.
So you start with his very first, just Garth Brooks, then go to whatever it might be, Rope in the Wind or No Fences, or I forget which one was next after that. You can probably go for until I forget about.
It's a great one.
Yeah, the fourth or fifth album. Then after that, they all fade away. So
that was my first concert show ever.
Yeah,
with Garth Brooks. It was amazing. I agree. Okay, Alyssa, go for it. Give us one.
Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
Okay.
Much more interesting to me.
Really different genres. Well, that's cool. I think people have fun. They're gonna go check it out. They're gonna see. Okay. No judgment, folks. Okay, on any of this stuff. Okay. Music is personal. Okay. All right. So let's kind of wrap things up. I'm kind of a little bit of out of the box question. So, Chris, to you, what emerging trends or developments do you find most interesting in the backpacking world or, travel right now? Anything come to mind at all?
I'm not sure if I'm in the flow of like all the trends that are out there at the moment. What I would say is I know people are looking for experiences that like take them that push them. And I think they show them something different that's a little bit, off the beaten path. And that's kind of what our sweet spot is at the moment. It's just enabling people to reach some of the more remotely sashes regions of kind of our country, like in the US, or especially in the West at the moment, that maybe you can't find at other locations. And so getting off the beaten track where there's less people, less crowds, no cell phone, no internet reception, and finding the time to kind of reconnect and reset is, why more people are wanting to get outdoors and go backpacking. And so it's becoming harder and harder to find those places. But our goal is to enable those opportunities for the everyday person so that, it doesn't have to be super expensive or super out of reach. You can just find a way to quickly, easily join the trip and join us in the outdoors.
Okay. Here's an out of the box question. What's a commonly held belief in your industry that you strongly disagree with? And that can be for you, Alyssa, too. Now, there may not be anything and we'll just move on, but I don't know what we'll flesh out. Let's see. Anything?
I don't know if I have common belief in the industry, but I do know that one question we get quite often is what kind of footwear we should bring. And we highly suggest people, no need for Gore-Tex shoes. We like people to bring shoes with lots of mesh. Trail runners are highly encouraged. I'd say 70, maybe 80% of people nowadays hike with trail runners on the trail with us nowadays versus the more larger sturdy boot or with a high top boot. I think that's great. So lightweight, comfortable trail runners, bring whatever shoes good for you. We like lots of mesh and with a lightweight or midweight sock, synthetic or wool blend, whatever it might be, so that water can come into the shoe, water can go out, and we can keep hiking through. For example, on our trans here at Trips Mount Whitney, we go through more than 24 stream crossings. And if you're going to sit there changing your shoes into water shoes and wading across, that's going to take you all day. The mosquitoes are going to be all over you, fresh food every stream crossing. So to the extent you can get comfortable hiking in wet shoes and letting them dry out as you hike is awesome.
Okay. Alyssa, do you want me to repeat that question? Do you want to answer it? Or if not, you can also just talk about what the heck. You can talk about footwear also, or
yeah.
Or you can wrap up and say anything you want.
Whatever. I'm definitely happy to answer that question. I agree with Chris on the trail runners. I think unless you have ankle problems, you probably don't need the big, heavy, bulky boots that were popular for a really long time. So 100% support the trail runners. But I would say the commonly held belief in the hiking community / industry that I think I most disagree with is that if you're not hiking ultralight, you're like not going to have a good time or you're not going to be able to do it. And like, while you should definitely focus on keeping your pack lighter because it's less impact on your body and you need way less than you think, you don't need like a sub 10 pound base weight that a lot of people are like, oh, if you don't have this, you're not going to have a good time. I would say like make sure you have enough stuff to be safe and comfortable, have the lightest version of an item that your budget can afford, but know that like you don't have to have the $600 like super light tent to be able to backpack and have a good time.
Absolutely.
Okay, I like it. Great. All right, we're kind of last two questions. So, Chris, tell us about any kind of upcoming projects or initiatives, that you're involved in.
Well, we host events online, and we're trying to build our event platform a little bit more. So we do online events that are open, free to all. We do cover topics on like backpacking 101, fresh backpacking meal ideas, first aid kits, stories of things that have gone wrong. We also talk about some of the trails that we talked about here. And so we've also been fortunate to have a few great outside presenters, Alyssa being one of them, to talk about different experiences on the PCT and on other trails. And so to the extent people are looking for just more backpacking content or stories, we'd love to have you kind of check out kind of our events platform. And that's what we're looking to kind of build out as a way to kind of build community and extend kind of our experiences with others.
Excellent. Okay, guys. I think we are done here. My hope is that for the listeners is that they will reach out to you and that they trust you, Chris and Alyssa. Some people might feel intimidated by something like this, but I hope that we made it clear that it's worthwhile, okay? And to mitigate, I guess, any issues, I would say get in great shape and then leave it up to Chris and his team leaders to guide you and to trust them and to enjoy, because I don't know that you can live a fulfilled life if you haven't challenged yourself in the wilderness. I strongly believe that. At some point in your life, you should do that, because you will learn about yourself. You will find things about yourself that you won't know in any other way. And as I said previously at the beginning, it's in our DNA. It's not foreign to us. And I think when you get out there, especially with the help of the TSX Challenge team members, you're gonna feel confident enough, and you will make it to the end. So guys, tell the listeners where they can get in touch with you, Chris, and speak to you and ask you questions and, book your trips.
Sure. You can find more information at tsxchallenge.com. You can find itineraries, links, videos, checklists, all kinds of stuff like that. Our contact information as well. Shoot us an email, send us a text, whether you're planning a trip with us or just looking for your own ideas. Use this as an open book. We're happy to share as much as possible so you have a safe and enjoyable trip out there this year and years to come. And we're here to help.
Excellent. And any listeners that want to solve their training solutions for hiking, please reach out to fitfortrips.com/consultation. And that gives you an opportunity to chat with me. And you can tell me about your biggest concerns, and we'll talk about how to solve those so that you get to enjoy particularly the TSX Challenge trips to their fullest. So anyway, guys, it's been great to meet you both, and thank you for the opportunity. You guys take care, okay?
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Marcus. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye. That concludes this episode of the Hike Strong podcast. I'm committed to keeping all of the episodes for free. All I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. My goal is to build a vast community of hikers with the confidence to crush any local or global trail. I hope you will join me in this endeavor. So until next time, train, hike, repeat, and as always, I'm here to support you every step of the way.